Well, thank you for joining today, as this is the June Grit workshop, and we are going to be featuring Courtney English on contentious business situations. And she's put together some incredible content. So feel free to, if you have questions, put them in the chat, or you can unmute when the time is right to ask those questions. But we really want this to be an engaging presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and mute myself, and I'll keep adding people in the weight room, and I'll keep an eye on the chat, Courtney.
Okay, great. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Courtney English. For those who do not know me, we're going to talk about contentious business situations. I'm in the process of moving, so this is not my normal space, but I believe I got all the slides here that you need. And if you have questions, please feel free to jump in. So today we're going to talk about the 5 steps to identify and diffuse these situations and when you need someone like myself. So a little bit about me. Oh, hold on, my slides aren't clicking. Okay, so that's me. I do estate planning, business, and trademark law. I work with a lot of business owners in the area, and my firm is Upscale Law. So if you want to contact me, that is my name. Email. Okay, so today we're going to walk through a bit of a scenario with Susie and Patty. These are fictional characters, but made off of many situations I have dealt with. So I thought this was the best way to convey this information without really like pointing fingers and give you guys a chance to see yourself or someone you know in this situation. So what I'm going to do is walk you through this and when you might need a lawyer, but how you can handle things on your own as well. A lot of times what will happen is people either, one, prematurely engage me and I'll tell them there's not really anything we can do yet, or they wait till it's gotten too bad and like we are doing a lot of damage control. So there's a certain spot where it makes sense to engage an attorney. So I thought by telling storytelling in this capacity, that'll help you guys to identify those situations and what you can do on your own. Maybe you will never need one. So Susie and Patty Susie owns a flower shop. Patty joined Susie's business after a tough divorce and some financial strain. Susie has been in growth mode and she assumed Patty would handle all inquiries for customers, including online. Patty is overwhelmed and misunderstood the job scope, and they had a conversation to work through this. So this is kind of the big picture that we're looking at here. So the first step I always ask people is what happened? So when a situation gets out of hand, we want to ask yourself in a factual way, what happened? So I gave you guys a little bit of context on Susie and Patty's imaginary relationship, but Susie thought Patty would handle all customer inquiries, and Patty believed her role was strictly in person when someone came into the flower shop. A miscommunication led to frustration, and they were both pretty upset. So the fact of the matter is there's a misunderstanding here. Now, I'm going to stop for a second in the step 1. This seems pretty basic, right? But what happens is when I get these calls, people's emotions are so heightened that I can't get through to the facts. So then I'm trying to get through to what's factually going on. Again, they're like, I just want to do something. I just want to, they didn't listen to me. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. And now I'm upset and I would take legal action. So I say, well, we can try A, B, and C. And then we start that process, and then I don't hear from them because they've calmed down. And they're like, okay, maybe that was premature, or maybe the situation changed drastically in that period. So I always tell people, start here, look at the facts. And it's very simple, these facts. What happened was Patty came in and said, I'll handle all the customer stuff. And Susie thought Patty would handle the online as well as in person, and Patty did not handle the online portion. Again, that is just the facts. So then step 2, I always ask people is, what is your history of this relationship? History will provide us a lot of context, and that matters. Because if people have these relationships where it's always up and down, but they stay in business with this person, or they continue to vend or interact with this person, like you're only causing yourself more damage, and you're not going to have a good claim if this escalates to legal action. You are literally inviting this into your life. So that is my like big sister advice, because you kind of got to stop at some point and say, I'm putting myself in this situation. So the history matters a lot. And also, sometimes you have a really strong history with somebody, and this is just a one-off. So you really want to get a gauge on what that is. So Susie and Patty were old friends who roomed together in college, and Patty supported Susie through a tough time. They were good friends and they supported each other. So when the divorce came around, it made sense for her to employ her and work together. That's just a simple history. So we don't have all this contentious business history. Oftentimes when these come to me and they're going to take legal action, there is a history of contention, of problems, of something that's happened. So be very factual again. And it does help if you actually write the stuff down. So when you're facing a situation, like jot these things down so you can see it in a black and white format. Okay. So then we always ask, in step 3, I always ask my clients, well, how did this happen? I understand there was this misunderstanding. You guys were friends, but like, how did it get to this point? Again, facts matter, so try to take the emotion out of it. But I want to understand the context of what people are dealing with in their lives outside of that job. Because the truth is, we are very multifaceted. And everyone will tell you, like, oh, I don't mix business and pleasure. I don't bring my personal into my business and vice versa. That is not true. How many of you guys have worked on a laptop with a kid, in the room? Or how many of you have had to be at the playground responding to an email? Like, right? We all have to do that. So the fact that these things around us aren't impacting how we work is just a falsehood. So I always want to understand like what's going on with people because that can drive how they're motivated and how they resolve problems, if they resolve problems. So in this situation, Patty's dealing with personal debt. She went through a hard divorce. She's exhausted from job hunting to try to cure her situation. Susie's on the other side. She wants business growth. She's got a stable personal life finally, and she just wants to focus on growth. So now they have differing priorities, and that can create a conflict because one is there just trying to get paid and do a job, and the other one's growth mode. If you guys own a business, you have probably seen this in your business if you've hired somebody, right? Like you're thinking acquisition, money, scaling, and then your employees are like, I just want to get paid for this hour I'm here. So you got to always remember that you guys are coming from different situations and their personal life is probably impacting how they perform as well. That doesn't mean you give excuses, but it does mean that you have to handle those situations a little differently and just be aware that their motivators probably aren't the same as yours. So thinking that they're going to be a little you and run your business like you would is not going to happen. And setting that expectation is going to make this a lot easier if we're dealing with tension or even a legal situation. Okay, so then step 4 I bring folks to is let's try to diffuse it. Diffuse doesn't mean resolution. We'll get to that in a moment. But diffuse means we just got to reduce the tensions a little bit. Because once we go in and heighten tensions, you're wasting time, money, energy, and a whole lot of stress. So Susie complimented Patty's skills with the customers. That's always a great way to start a conversation. Hey, you did a great job, A. Like this is something you're doing well. And then Patty expressed admiration for her accomplishment. So they kind of a mutual ground of where like, hey, you did a good job building this business. You did a good job with the customers that come in. So we kind of set a tone that's like, hey, we can have a conversation about this, but we don't have to be resolved. Oftentimes when you go into these, you're not going to reach a resolution. I'm just going to be totally honest with you guys. You don't have to even compromise necessarily. You just have to reach a level of understanding of where they're coming from. And that's why we want to set the groundwork of the facts as well as an understanding of the context of what's going on in people's lives. So then that's when I bring my step 5 in. So resolution is not necessary. Sometimes resolution isn't ideal or even possible. Patty expressed concerns about doing his administrative task. And then, Susie clarified that she needs to do computer work. Like, hey, I hired you to handle customers. That means being on the computer. And Patty's like, well, I didn't think that was my job. So now Patty's going to stay on temporarily, but she's going to job hunt because she's like, I don't want to be on a computer. I just want to work with people. So the takeaway is not all conflicts have to end in clear resolutions, but you can still move forward. In this situation, they were longtime personal friends, so they just identified that they had this gap in their understanding between each other and decided to go their separate ways. Obviously, this is fantasy land, and it doesn't always go this way. But it's important to point out that that resolution wasn't necessary in this context. You don't owe people a resolution. You owe yourself understanding and peace. But oftentimes we bend over backwards trying to resolve, but it doesn't do any good to anybody. In the end, everyone still feels kind of hurt or let down, or it escalates even further. Which will bring me to, so when do I call a lawyer? So this is when things can escalate. So as hard as this situation is, none of that I gave you in that scenario was actually legally actionable. Yeah, there were some hard things in there, some tough conversations, but nothing would have risen to a level of an attorney filing a suit, sending a demand letter, or anything like that. But here is what would have triggered a call to your lawyer. So what if Patty intentionally started snubbing customers because she got upset at the way she was treated? Or she diverted them away and said, go to Julie's flower shop instead. You don't want to come here. What if Susie and Patty, or one of them, took it to social media? What if they sent emails or messaged each other, wrote something about each other? Even if it was kind of underhanded or maybe a little bit vague, that would be actionable. A written contract, let's say she hired her on as a contractor and said, your job was to handle these tasks and you didn't do it. That could have been legally actionable because then we're violating an agreement. Or if Patty's actions could have caused a loss in revenue over time, that's actually tortious interference. And that is an actionable item in the state of Missouri. So if you interfere with someone's business expectations, that can be actionable as well. So any wrong step in this scenario, if she would have called a friend and said, I can't believe she did this to me, she's a terrible business owner. And then she would have sent an email to another friend venting about it. Like all these things could have been actionable. They might seem benign, but you're slandering someone's reputation as a business owner. Or let's say that she saw their customer list and was like, I'm going to go start my own business. That would have been tortious interference. I mean, she could have taken that customer list with her. So all it would have taken is one step off for this to escalate to a point where we have a big problem. So what I tell folks is when you walk through these steps that I identified, that's going to help you kind of keep things on a path of escalating too far. But you have to keep your eye on what that person's doing. Be observant. Your job is to keep your head on a swivel and to make sure that none of these other things are occurring either behind the scenes or in front of your face. So these are the things that I commonly see. I like to point out, like I said, that not everything's actionable right in the beginning, but they can escalate to that. So try to take those steps to protect yourself, because I'm definitely the proactive attorney. Most people tell you work with me. I'm like, hey, what did you do first? Like, how can we get you to be in the best position before we take a legal step? And these things will all help to show that you're in that best position. All right. So now questions. What questions do you guys have?
Feel
I
free to
actually,
unmute. Okay, there's.
I actually don't have a question. I just wanted to say a comment. The statement that you made that resolution is not always necessary is actually really helpful for me because you always kind of feel like you need to work towards some sort of resolution and you know come out happy on the other end. And just some like the statement of not necessarily having to try and force a resolution. You can be done even if there's not a resolution. You can move forward without a resolution. That's just helpful for me to hear today. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that because sometimes we just like kill ourselves trying to do that, right? So you just trade off
Correct.
your peace and your energy. So
Yeah.
yeah, glad to hear that. Anyone else? Or questions about business, maybe in general?
Courtney's Grit's attorney, and she's helped me trademark Grit. So that's how I was able to trademark Grit. And she's helped me with a lot of different other obstacles that have arisen along my journey as a business owner. So I invited her today just because she's an incredible advocate for Grit and she's really talented at what she does. So yeah, feel free to unmute and ask any questions. This is a privilege to have her today.
Well, that actually brought a question up for me. I'm sorry to jump in again. I don't want to hog the time. Can you talk about a little bit about like trademarking, for example, because my business is still really young. Like when do you kind of hit the tipping point to say like, okay, I think I actually have something here that I need to trademark? When is a good time for that? Or can you talk
Yeah.
about the conditions for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have to tell people there's a foundational point to building your business and the protections you need to take while making money. Because, a big mistake can be to just dump everything into like legal services and then you never make any money. So we want to be in an ideal time where we're doing things. So the first step is always an LLC. There's a few times we do corporations, but for most folks on here, probably an LLC would make sense. And then once you have that and you're off with a brand name, so you have a brand name that people know, maybe you've acquired the domain, you're marketing in this name and you're making some money, that's when we want to do the trademark process. So we want to make sure that you have a name that you really love, that you are getting known for, and that you're investing in. You have to that's a delicate balance because we want to get that filed before you put too much money into it, because in case there's a problem with the trademark and you have to rebrand, you're gonna have to go back over and redo everything. And then if you wait too long, so on the other thing, let's say you just wait too long to do it, someone else could grab the name and then you could be in cease and desist. So you could get a cease and desist letter saying you have to stop, someone could cancel your brand, and then that can escalate beyond as well. So you want to find that kind of that delicate balance of you love the name, you're making a little bit of money, might not be a ton, and people are recognizing it. So those are really the things I look for.
So like when you're going through like the trademark process, can you just give me like an idea? Is it just like a form that you fill out and turn in, and or is it more in depth than that? I don't actually understand that part at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. So trademarks are registered with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. So the first step we always do is a search and analysis because we have to make sure it's available. Trademarks are not just analyzed on like the same name. We look for similar names can be a roadblock as well. So there's a little bit of an analysis point there. And then when you file it online. There is a filing portion that will look sort of like an application. It's not, to the untrained eye, it's very confusing, I will say. They're trying to always make it better, but it's, it's the government's website. So that's the process there. But once it's filed, it goes to an attorney in their office, and that attorney is going to come back with questions and legal like analysis that requires a response. The response period right now is you get 90 days, and that's it. You used to get like 120, like they've changed a few times, but since I've been doing this, it's changed like 3 times. So you only get 90 days to respond. If you don't respond, you can lose a trademark. You also have to respond very like succinctly and appropriately. Even if you represented yourself, like there is no grace to that. It has to be done a certain way because everything is statutory. So that's the process in a nutshell. And then at the end of all that, if that's all done correctly, all those boxes are checked, that's when you get registration.
Got it.
But if those things are done wrong, it won't register and you don't get any of your fees back either.
Got
So
it.
yeah.
Okay.
What did it take, Grit? It was like a 1.5-year process, right, Courtney?
Yeah, it was. Yours had a few questions on it that we had to answer and things like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I will say that Jen's has got like, we got really lucky on that one. Not that we didn't work hard on it, but
We
it's
got very lucky. And I remember thinking as a newer business owner, I'm like, do I invest this money? Because I'm not getting it back. So it was one of those risks. And Courtney's like, do it because you're going to regret it. I'm so glad we
yeah.
did. Yeah.
Yours was like right on that edge. And there was other
Yep.
ones that were up and coming that were like, we have to do this now. Yeah. So
What percentage of your business is estate planning? And do you do full-blown trusts and
yeah, I
business
do.
owner documents and everything as well?
I do. So the way I've done, so my background is all in-house law. So I did in-house, then I went on my own. I just added an estate planning. This has been like 7 years ago. And then my business roster got very full. So I started working with another attorney to handle estate planning. And then their roster got too full and they couldn't handle business succession planning. So that's like the short way of me telling you that I brought it all back together and found a way to do it. So yeah, it's a percentage of what I do. Most of my estate planning are for my business clients. So I do full-blown trust, irrevocable and revocable. We do special needs as well. And we do the business succession planning as well as their personal estate because they do go hand in hand. The gap I have found in the attorney marketplace is a lot of attorneys don't know both. And that causes me, I get called to work with estate planners all the time because I'm helping to collaborate on that business portion when they might just know, hey, you're married, you have a W-2 job and like a house. That's a little bit of a simpler equation than a business. So being involved. So I handle that full piece. And I do have a few clients who are just, married with homes and children as well, who aren't business owners. But yeah, so I would say it's a larger percent of my practice as it relates to my business clients, and its standalone estate planning has grown quite a bit in the last 2 or 3 months, just meaning people who found me who just are married with kids kind of thing, or not. So. Do you have any specific questions on that or?
No, I'm gonna I'm gonna reach out to you separately.
Okay.
I always have quite a few clients that have estate planning needs, but they're going to be more on the personal side than the business. But again, with my client base, I'm always asked for trademark attorneys, business attorneys. So I like that you lump it all into one and that you can do all aspects of that process.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it was a need. I used to think I could just kind of parse things out, but it never made sense. So
Right.
yeah. But like all businesses, we learn as we grow, right? So
Well, and I have a couple clients that have businesses that either they think they can draft the LLC themselves or that they don't have a need to have it trademarked. And I would love for them to have a conversation with an attorney who reinforces the need for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate that. It's the thing about trademarks too, is they always seem like they're kind of a nice to have. They've really become a necessity because online branding has just blown up, like with social media, Google, whatever that may be, domains. And if you don't protect them, like it also plays a defense from getting sued. So, there's always a risk there if you don't do that protection. I guess important part. It can be an insurance policy really to the name.
Do you ever do infringements?
I do. I do. I have one client that we're doing an infringement like 4 times a year on domains. People are always buying up her domains and trying to redirect traffic from her site. So we do a lot of that work.
So, like, I have a question about that. Right now, like, I own the name of my business is Higher State Consulting, and I own Higher State Consulting domain. But at some point, I would like to kind of have like a spin-off of that, or make it like Higher State Meditation, right? So I went in to go see if I could like acquire that domain, and it was taken. So, like, that kind of tells me, well, maybe somebody else is already doing that, even though whenever I try to like look it up, I didn't, nothing pulled on it, right? And I don't know if like, people, like brokers just get them and like sit on them. And is there a way to sometimes try to acquire that, or should I try to like trademark it before like I acquire it, or any kind of idea about that?
Yeah, that's a delicate balance. So what I tell people is as soon as you file a trademark, they go public. So there's a USPTO database where trademarks is a public record. So what can happen is once you file them, people will buy up a bunch of domains if you haven't bought them. So you want to find the balance. So buy what you can. If you
Right.
can't buy that one, that's fine. Buy what you can is available. And then trademark, get that application in queue. Once your trademark is registered, and if that domain is still like someone's using it, or we don't know what's going on, maybe it's parked or whatever, you can get that domain back through it's a proceeding. It's a UDRP proceeding. But usually what we do is we just send a demand letter first saying like, hey, she owns this trademark. Here's the reference number. They can verify that information and they know they have to hand it over. So the
Okay.
only exceptions that they wouldn't have to hand it over is if they've actually been using that name like longer than you and they are like, a business with that name and they have what we call common law rights.
Yeah.
But most of the time people park them and
Yeah.
try to direct traffic.
So
So
by me buying up iterations of that name, like .org or .co or whatever, if I'm on the different iterations of that name, but just not the .com, does that add validity to my request to trademark it or no?
it does. Well, to the trademark process, no. It does to
Okay,
help you get the domains back, but the trademark process, it doesn't really matter. What the trademark office is going to look at is to see how you're actually using it.
got it.
So while you may have a domain, they want to see your website, that it's used on your website, that people are recognizing the brand, things like that.
Okay, helpful. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Anyone else have any other questions for Courtney?
Yes, I do. Oh, okay, go ahead.
Awesome.
I'm just curious on some of these things that are kind of, I don't want to say kind of, maybe predictable in terms of the process, like the trademark. Do you work with folks on an hourly basis or is it like a package of services? Um, I'm thinking about starting a business, you know, in the future and would love to get a sense of, and I'll reach out to you separately, but kind of planning around not only the what, but the budget for the what.
Yeah, absolutely. So trademarks are a flat fee, formations are a flat fee as well. So if you're in that starting phase, we would start with your LLC formation first and foremost, and that would be flat feed. So we can predict to your comment on that, like those processes, so we can flat fee them. So think with trust, most estate planning. The exceptions would be if we're, litigating anything, if we have some contentious come up that we're not sure where it's going to go. I do a lot of like merger acquisition work as well. A lot of that's unpredictable. So those things, are on a case by case basis, but I do have a list of services that are just flat feed that are easy for you to retain and predict cost.
Great. Thank you, Courtney.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Aranola, I think I heard you have a question. I don't know if you still have that question.
Yes, I was trying to unmute. Thank you, Sarinola. And I've owned my business for 13 years. And as the founder, I make most of the decisions and, kind of do my thing. But I'm at a stage now where I'm having conversation with a potential partner. And I'm trying to do my research because I know, things are going to be different because I won't be the only one making the decision. We have to agree on things. So what are the common issues that you have seen with, partnership and, relationship like that I can be aware of or think about before I go through with this process?
Yeah, I love that question because I feel like this happens a lot with my clients. I always ask people like, what's your motivation for wanting a partner? Because a lot of people, when we get to the heart of it, is they just want someone to share the burden with, right? Like it's hard being on your own. But the truth of the matter is you're adding a lot more. You're never going to truly share the burden. So I always ask people to do a little soul searching as to why you're truly bringing in a partner. Because if you're just trying to share the burden, it's not going to be that way. I can just tell you that. I've seen a lot of these go south. And it's because the expectation was that original founder thought I could bring somebody in, they could do A, I'll do B, my life will be so much easier. And it just doesn't work that way. So I would always say do a little soul searching on that first. The second piece of it is, and not to scare you away from what you're trying to do, but a lot of times partnerships don't work out. The statistics are like a divorce, really. More often than not, it doesn't work. So what I like to do is I kind of like people to date right before we marry. So I try to see if there's a way we could work together in a joint venture capacity first. And if you've already done that, then you probably know this person well and how they work. But a joint venture capacity means that you bring them on maybe as a consultant for a little bit, or you guys can maybe tackle a project together that you're both really interested in, and you draft a joint venture agreement between the two of you. And what that says is like, hey, we're going to work together for this duration. We're going to see how it goes. And this is our goal and our objective. And you can both go into like eyes wide open to see what you both are really about. Joint venture should make you money. So there's really no loss there. It protects you from going right into a partnership with somebody, and it gives you that opportunity to see how you guys work together and, what is to be gained here or what your risks are. After you do that, you guys decide, yeah, we want to go in a partnership level. If you are the one with the established business, your partner should be buying in. I see a lot of women mess that up, and I don't mean disparaging against women, but men are just like, yep, here's the check. You want to come in? This is what it costs. I don't see as many of my women clients do that. They just bring somebody in. You have value in your business, so there should be some level that they are buying in. It could be sweat equity. It could be a long-term financing. There could be options to make that easier. They don't have upfront like cash to do that, but there is a level of value to what you have built. There should be a buying in process in exchange for equity. And then that equity that makes them a partner, that all needs to be drafted in legal documents. And the biggest thing I'm going to tell you in a legal document you're going to need if you have a partner is what happens if it doesn't work out. Because if that's not addressed in there, especially in Missouri, there are not great statutes to help you like dissolve. So you're going to be really tied up in some problems. So what you want to do is make sure you have language in there for that. Unless everything goes great. Well, you want to buy sell as well in there. Buy sell says like divorce, disability, or death. Because what if your partner comes in, they're doing a great job, you guys are making money, and then they get ill or they pass away suddenly? You need a buy sell agreement in there, and life insurance and some of those other little pieces to help finance that out. Because if that person just passes away suddenly, you are stuck trying to run this business by yourself and you have to replace them. So that's going to be a cost. And then, of course, the time and what have you. So there's a lot of little pieces once you get to that partnership. And that's just kind of a snapshot. But what I really like people to start with, if they can, is to go with that joint venture route and make sure this is going to work. So if you can think of a project you guys want to work on together or hire them as a consultant for a little bit, that's a great opportunity to kind of iron out some of those things.
Courtney, I think I'm going to make an appointment to see you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I was just thinking I need to do that for the radio show too, because I'm working with a new couple. So great idea.
Definitely. Anyone else?
I think this is just great because this can feel really overwhelming. And everybody, says, oh, just start a business. Like, you just go do it and it's easy peasy. And it's just sell and get money and blah, blah, blah. And the legal stuff can just feel like so many aspects. This feels much more inviting on like how to get started and break it down. And so thank you, Jennifer, for exposing us to this. And thank you, Courtney. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Courtney does an amazing job of dumbing it down because it is overwhelming. And every time I meet with her, it's just like a world of wisdom. And I feel really grateful that she could be here today. So, Courtney, I'm actually curious of what's been the most interesting case or account that you've worked on. Like, do you have any that really like resonate with you that you've truly made an impact and it's just kind of been imprinted in your brain?
No, that's a good question. Trying to think through some of these things I've worked on recently. I will say some of my favorite ones are when I have a person starting off the ground in a business. Usually they pivot from a corporate job. That's a lot of my clientele. It's like they had a corporate job and they kind of pivoted into wanting to do it on their own. They start as a consultant of some sort, or they build something on the side and it grows. And some of my favorite ones that I see is when people want to do this because they want to be with their family more, have more flexibility. And then I see that scale and and it works. So I would say to that end, I had one who she was just she was a mom, she had little kids, and she was working a corporate job. She was very stressed out, and she decided to go on her own. She's like, I'm going to try to blog. Like, we have an RV. I'm just going to try to blog about the RV life. Like, I know people are kind of over the blogging thing, but she's like, I just can't keep going. And like a very, we'll say, well-to-do RV company picked up on her blog, and they agreed to like buy them an RV and like sponsor their stuff. And it just totally changed their life. So they got to like be that RV family. They only did it for a year though, because then she got burned out and she's like, I cannot live in that with my children anymore. But she got to have like what she thought was the dream for a year, and then she came back and she's like, it was just really cool. Like, she got to realize that. And what was neat is in the end, she even realized, like, I don't want to do this 24/7. I want to do something a little bit different in business. So she gets to pivot yet again. And that one always kind of sticks out in my mind because she had success at all these different intervals and finally realized what she thought she wanted, and then was still open to maybe this wasn't it, and then pivot kind of back a different way. So that one's really neat. She had like 4 kids in an RV. So I don't know how she did that, but she didn't do it long. So, yeah, so it was pretty cool.
Well, if no one else has any questions, I guess we'll give you guys his time back. I do have this in a recording, so I'll send Courtney a link and I'll send out a recap to all of you that were able to attend today, and I'll put it on the Grit YouTube station. And again, I'm just tossing it out there. If any of you guys are interested in being on the new Elevate and Lead radio show, I'm securing spots right now. So if that's an opportunity that you would like to amplify your voice as being a bold leader in our community, reach out to me directly. And thank you so much, Courtney, for sharing your time and wisdom and your talents. And she's a trusted thought leader within Grit. So thank you for being here, guys. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your week.
Will we have a way to be able to get in touch with Courtney?
Absolutely. I will send you her contact information, and she's on
Okay.
LinkedIn too, but I'll put that in a recap in the email.
Okay, cool. Because Courtney, I've worked with Courtney before at your recommendation, Jen, and didn't know, Courtney, that you left and were on your own. So yay for you.
Yeah, I was on my own, pivoted in-house, then went back out. So
Three kids and out of corporate on her own again.
yes,
Love it.
yeah, that's not gonna happen again. So yeah. Well, happy to talk to you guys. Yeah, reach out, and my email's on the slide as well. We can go from there.
Thank you. Great call.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.